So this Chinese man, extremely intelligent guy. I'll link his channel in the description. Explains something that I intuitively picked up on years ago, and that has accelerated. And I'm not going to play the whole video, but I'm going to play some excerpts. And he eloquently explains in a simplistic manner. Um, you gotta definitely watch this because he is basically explaining to you why we're having all of this degradation in society, right? Where is the transsexuality agenda coming from? Where's the homosexuality agenda coming from? And what's ultimately going to lead to basically an all-out war, right? Which is weird, right? You wouldn't think that, but he explains how like the symptoms, like we don't like, wow, is this a progression of society? It's not. It's a degradation that's ultimately going to lead in a total collapse and all-out war, particularly in places, in the Americas and Europe and Western society. And it basically stems from feminism. It basically stems from feminism and uh, social media, right? So feminism, you look at feminism, social media, and globalization, and he explains clearly. I'm just gonna play some excerpts on how it basically leads to, and it's always historic. This is historical precedence for the T. I mean, he breaks it down, man. He outlines it so clearly how every time this happens in society, and it's happened before, what happens, right? And it becomes brutal for women. You see, the outcome is brutal for women. Um, so let's get right into it. So let's play some excerpts from this.
Ask every single one of those young black men in prison, okay? Ask every single person that's dropping out of school. Ask every single murderer, every single rapist, every single drug dealer, every single person that ran away from school, every single person that is just pure vile evil. All of these hosts on the streets, all these 304s, the women with 200 plus body counts, woman that's doing OnlyFans getting drilled by Dread, by Shane Diesel, by Mandigo. Just simply ask all of these people one simple question, okay? Were you raised by a single mother? I'm not saying that I have a hatred towards single mothers, but I'm just saying that this is the root cause there. As I mentioned, okay, being raised by a single mother, it causes permanent biological changes to both your X and your Y chromosomes, okay? And it's because of things like this. Women who are raised up by single mothers on average, typically they hit puberty 1 year earlier versus other girls who are raised in a nuclear two-parent household family. And then when a woman hits puberty at an extremely young age, do you know what happens then? This leads to extreme sexual promiscuity from a very early age on. I mentioned before, okay, I grew up without a mother. I grew up without a father, okay? I was raised by my grandmother until I was 12. And then after I came to Canada, I was kicked out by my dad and my stepmom, okay? I basically became homeless. I've been living by myself since I was 15, okay? I've been living on my own for the past 16 years now. When you grow up without one parent, on average, your lifespan will be 4 years shorter. When you grow up without either parents, on average, you will live 8 years shorter. Also, just the fact that women on average typically live anywhere between 4 to 5 years longer than men, and I'm probably not going to live very long. Growing up in a single parent household will cause permanent biological changes to your body. Okay, very important. This actually alters your chromosomes. You can look up this study. You don't think this altering of the chromosomes has a direct link to the dramatic increase in the number of people that's coming out as transgender, as queer, and as non-binary? All of this stuff is happening in our society because the structure of the nuclear family has completely broken down. Okay, let's look at what's happening overseas on the other side of the world. Let's talk about foreign European and North American passport bros and sex pats. I have to keep bringing back this point. Women are born into this world with values, okay? For example, let's say 200 years ago, okay, if you're just a normal average Thai girl, if you were born in Bangkok or Pattaya or Chiang Mai, right, you're probably going to marry a local Thai man that also grew up in the same city. However, we're living in the 21st century with globalization and modern technology. Any average Thai girl can find a American or European passport bro. That guy can simply just hop onto a plane, book a flight to Pattaya, where he will marry this local Thai girl, and he will provide for her financially. I'm not talking about just a situationship or a summer fling. I'm talking about some passport bros. They will actually settle down in Asia, where he will marry the local Asian woman, where he will buy a house for her, where he will buy a car for her, where they will raise children, and where he pays 100% of the bills, okay? This is the privilege that a woman can have in this world. A man simply doesn't have this kind of privilege. For example, you want to talk about transgender, okay? Just look at what's happening in Asia. For example, in Thailand, there are millions of lady boys, okay? I've been to Thailand twice personally myself. I've been to those LGBTQ drag shows. They call the Tiffany show or a cabaret show, okay? I've seen some crazy stuff that go down. But one thing have you guys noticed is that 99% of the time, it's a biological man. It's a dude with XY chromosomes. It's these guys who are cutting off their balls and becoming lady boys. You never hear someone who is a boy lady. Let's say someone who was born as a Thai woman who transitions to become a Thai man. Why do you guys think that is? Show or a cabaret show, okay? I've seen some crazy stuff that go down. But one thing have you guys noticed is that 99% of the time, it's a biological man. It's a dude with XY chromosomes. It's these guys who are cutting off their balls and becoming lady boys. You never hear someone who is a boy lady. Let's say someone who was born as a Thai woman who transitions to become a Thai man. Why do you guys think that is? An average Thai girl nowadays can easily find a passport bro, but this choice is not available for these local Thai men. And remember, Thailand is a third world country, okay? You don't see some super rich white businesswoman from New York that would fly to Thailand to become a passport sister. So many of these guys, they're left with no choice. So many of their local women are taken. They're simply not able to find any partners. There's not a lot of good paying jobs available in Thailand. So many of these young Thai men, they will rather choose to get plastic surgery and the hormone replacement therapy, and also get their bottom surgery to get gender affirming care, to cut their penis off, to have a doctor drill a hole down there so they have a neo vagina instead. And they will start performing and doing sex work as a lady boy just so that they can make some cash. That is the reality for many average Thai men. So for the next part, let's shift over to partners. Because unless you can come up with the payment for the dowry, okay, no woman will marry you. This has been true for thousands of years. And it is because of these traditions throughout history, very small percentage of men actually got to reproduce. So anytime this kind of practice went on for a really long time, okay, it produced a system where millions of Chinese men, they become involuntarily celibate, okay, they become cold, they become rageful. And they say that, oh, look, all these rich and wealthy, okay, they're buying up all of these women. All of us normal peasants, we're left with nothing. So they start a massive bloody rebellion. Have you guys heard of the Yellow Turban Rebellion during the Three Kingdoms? Millions of people died. Have you guys heard of the Anlushan Rebellion in China during the Tang Dynasty? That killed upwards of 36 million people. Have you guys heard of the Taiping Rebellion in China during China's century of humiliation? That killed anywhere between 20 to 30 million people. See, women will never understand this. It's just like, for example, someone like me, I will never know what it's like to give birth. I will never know what it's like to menstruate. And it is simply because, women don't have a testosterone in their body. They don't understand the concept, okay? A man's hormone, his sex drive, okay, his biological instinct to find a intimate partner, to find a wife, to have children, to pass down his bloodline. This kind of a hormone, this kind of sex drive in his body, this will drive man to commit unspeakable crimes against humanity. And what happens during times of war? Almost every single soldier that dies on the battlefield, I'm talking about 99.9% of the cases, okay, all of the deaths are men. And as a man, if you end up on the losing side, if you're not killed during battle, what happens? Okay, the opposition, they come into your village, they take all your women, and all the men become enslaved. You get your balls and your penis cut off. You become a Chinese eunuch. During the Ming Dynasty, the second last dynasty of China, upwards of 1 million Chinese eunuchs served in the imperial palace. That's just one dynasty. You think about China's 5,000 year history. Think about how many men have had their penis cut off, or how many men have died in wars. And these men were necessary sacrifices because, after millions of men died during a war, during a rebellion, and another batch of millions that become slaves and become eunuchs, this means that there's a massive excess of women. So even with the top man taking in, 100, 500, 2,000 concubines, there were still enough women to pass around for all the men that remained. And whenever there's a society where almost every single man can find a woman to procreate with, to start a family, this brings peace and stability to the society. You see, this is a vicious cycle. This is a circle of life. So you have excess men, not enough women. Okay, the men get pissed, they become incels, they start a massive rebellion. Then millions of men will get killed. Then you have a case where you have a very few men and a large number of excess women. Now there's enough women to be shared with everybody. You have peace and stability. See, this is the vicious circle of life. I'm sure.
So we're gonna stop that right there. I think this Asian man gave a compelling um, historical precedent um, tied in with modern some of what's going on in the modern era, where we have feminism and social media leading to um, that have given rise to the same elements of that situation that happened during feudal, situations in feudal China. And he's shown you how these imbalances, right, where you have all these incels and social media and different things have led to, young men in the West not being able to find, women, wives, girlfriends, fiancées, etc. And then you have a rise in this transgender movement and feminism, and it's basically the same scenario. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the statistics, it's the same scenario that played out in like places like feudal China in the past. So there's precedent for this. So there's an imbalance, and this imbalance going to lead to a brutal war. Long story. I don't want to make this too long, but because you can look at the example, I'll post the videos. But he's right. I mean, if you're logical, you look at history. He's right. History may not repeat itself, but it sure will rhyme, right? Or something like that. However the saying goes, right? And so now we're at that same tipping point in the West. This shit is going to go Mad Max, right? There's no doubt that this whole thing is going to go Mad Max based on historical precedent, right? Where, and for women, it's going to be one of the most dangerous periods in human history. I mean, I saw this in a dream. I had a dream about this. I think I talked about it on this channel. And, there will be no more independent women, any of that kind of thing. Like, all that's going to get wiped out, never to be seen again. Um, the whole era of feminism is going to get wiped, and it's not going to be like a vote or any of that. Like he said, when this shit happens, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal for everybody. Um, and especially like you look at places like the United States. I mean, you're not just gonna have the gender aspect of it. You're gonna have the racial aspect of it, right? So you're gonna have a race war, gender war, all intertwined, right? So what I mean, like in a lot of places, it's not gonna be just one aspect. And he talked about that I'm not gonna play the rest of it, but he talked about that in the video, right? He talked about the immigration in Europe in different places. And I mean, he touched on a lot. I'll link the video, but it's going to. I mean, I've been saying that before. He said it, but when I watched this video, it just hit home, right? I was like, wow, this guy, he really nailed it. It's going to go Mad Max. The feminism and social media, the racism, all this, all these things mixed in is going to it's leading to a degradation. And the signs and symptoms of that is the homosexuality and the transsexuality, right? And the feminism and all that is these symptoms of the cancer, right? It's not progression. It's the symptoms of a cancer. And then that cancer is going to lead to an implosion, is leading to a crescendo, which is the implosion into a Mad Max scenario, a war that just goes total bonkers. It's going to be, Mad Max and, Conan the Barbarian and the dinosaurs mixed. You know what I mean? So you can imagine being a woman in this scenario, right? Imagine that, right? There's no more calling a maintenance man. There's no more dialing 911. You see? It's just total fucking anarchy, total war, total Mad Max. I mean, and you can imagine like all of the airhead bimbos running around here now that think like, nobody tells me nobody tells me what to do. I'm an independent woman and all that, all this crazy shit that they got in their head. Like they're just gonna get totally decimated because it's just not gonna work. They're not gonna be able to adjust because, particularly because information is shock resistance and people don't see, you can't see what's coming, right? You have normalcy bias. So because of your normalcy bias, you think, well, this can never change, right? It's just gonna get more. I'm gonna get more and more feminism. I'm gonna get more and more transsexuality. It's gonna be more and more homosexuality. You have no idea that this train is about to hit the side of the mountain, right? What's the saying? What happens when an immovable object hits an unstoppable whatever, right? Unstoppable. I forgot how the saying goes, right? You know, what happens when two unstoppable, it's like Superman and Omni Man, right? What happens when they collide? An immovable object meets an unstoppable force or something like that. It's gonna be it's gonna be total Mad Max. It's probably gonna be worse than that. For a period because because like he said, then things come back into balance. But how does that look as it comes back into balance, right? To societal or to an organic societal balance, right? Racially, from a race standpoint, from a gender standpoint, all these things. How do they come back into balance? You're not going to do it through the civil rights movement, voting, any of this. That's not how it's going to happen, right? A civil discourse, right? And I mean, it's not me saying. I mean, listen to what he's saying about the historical precedents for this. It's not just like you say, oh, this is crazy. This guy's crazy. He's on the internet. This guy's unhinged. He's unhappy. He's unhinged. Really? I mean, this dude just explained to you hundreds of years of history, and the same things have happened. So you might think I'm crazy, but I don't know. Is historical precedent crazy as well, or are you just detached from reality? Right? That's the question. It's historical. I may be crazy. Okay. Unhinged. But is historical precedent also crazy and unhinged? Or or are you totally detached from reality? Are you an ignorant fool who has no foresight that is totally detached from reality and intelligence that can't put two and two together? I mean, because all law is based on historical precedent, right? Roe v. Wade, right? We go back to this historical precedent, blah blah blah, and all of this. So I'm saying historical precedent has no merit, has no bearing on you. You say, oh, that was back then. That could have never happened again. Really? Says who? I'm, anyway, that's all I got.